Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this video we are going to complete the remaining portion of chapter number 1 of class 8th science, which is crop production and management. My name is Vrinda and this is your lecture number 2. So first of all, let's quickly discuss the remaining agriculture practices involved in crop production. So the first one here is irrigation. Now what is irrigation? So basically, supply of water to crops. Supply of water to the crops at regular and appropriate intervals is termed as irrigation. Fine. In India, farmers are generally dependent on rainfall for the irrigation. But the other sources of irrigation are river, lakes, ponds, wells, tube wells. These are the other sources of irrigation. Now, traditionally, there were different methods for irrigation, and nowadays, modern methods of irrigations are used. Okay, so traditional method of irrigation are moat, chain pump, rahat or lever system, and dhekli. These four have been termed as traditional method of irrigation. Modern method of irrigation includes sprinkler system and drip irrigation method. Fine. When we compare traditional methods and modern methods of irrigation, traditional methods are actually less efficient than modern methods, but both has their own advantages. Like traditional methods were less efficient, but they were cheaper than the modern methods, which means modern methods of irrigation which we are using nowadays are much more expensive than the traditional methods of irrigation. When it comes to modern method, the most important advantage of modern method is they are very effective in the places where there is unequal distribution of water, which means there is hardly any wastage of water. There is no wastage of water when we use modern methods of irrigation, which is again very important in terms of agriculture and in terms of irrigation. So this is all about irrigation. So the next agriculture practice we are going to discuss is weeding and pest control. So weeding includes weeds and pest control includes pests. Now what are weeds? Weeds are the unwanted plants. These are the unwanted plants which grows naturally along with the crops, and they uses the nutrients, water, space and light of the crops, which again will hamper the growth of the crops, plants, etc. And when we talk about pests are the organisms which destroys the crop by causing diseases or by eating parts of crops or plants. Okay, this is the way they hamper the crops, and this is the way they again crops have been hampered and crops have been destroyed. Fine. So we need to get rid of both weeds and pests. Fine. So example of weeds are wild oats, grass, etc. Example of pests are rodents, birds, insects, microorganisms, etc. So, removal of weeds is been termed as weeding, and the chemical used in weeding is termed as weedicides. Fine. So, weeds can be removed by weedicides by the process of weeding. Fine. And pest is controlled using chemical pesticides. So pesticides helps and kills all the pests which are destroying the crops. So this is all about weeding and pest controls. Fine. So next agriculture practice which we're going to discuss is about harvesting. Now what is harvesting? This is the process of cutting crops. Harvesting is the process of cutting crops when they are ripen and mature. When the crops are ripen or mature, they have been cut, and that process is particularly termed as harvesting. It is done using harvester. It is done with the help of harvester. Now after harvesting, threshing has been carried out. So this involves separating grains or seeds from husk. Okay, husk. So this is done by beating the crops on the threshing floor. This is done with the help of combine harvester, which performs both threshing and harvesting. Fine. So threshing is done with the help of combine harvester. Now, after threshing, winnowing has been carried out. Winnowing involves separation of loosened chaff from grains. Fine. In this process, loosened chaff is been separated from the grains with the help of winnowing machine. Next is hulling. After winnowing, hulling is carried out. In this, outer cover of seed, grains or fruits is been removed with the help of huller machine. Fine. This is the process of hulling. Now, milling. So grinding of grains into flour is termed as milling, and this is carried out with the help of milling machine. Fine. So this is all about harvesting, which is the process of cutting crops. So the last agriculture practices involved in crop production is storage of crop. Fine. So this is the most important step after all this hard work. If this has not been carried out properly, that would be a huge loss to the farmer. Fine. So we need to store the crops very carefully. If crops are not stored properly, they would be destroyed. Fine. So due to improper storage, crops can be destroyed. Fine. And the purpose of storage of crop is to protect crop from animals, birds, insects, microorganisms, etc. This is the whole and sole purpose of storage of crop in a proper way. Fine. Now, the storage of crops at room temperature is termed as dry storage. Now, crops have been stored in granaries or silos. Fine. And after that, they have been transported to the respective places. So this is all about storage of crops. Now the next part of this chapter is nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation. So the process of converting atmospheric nitrogen into usable form of nitrogen compounds is termed as nitrogen fixation. Fine. When the atmospheric nitrogen is converted into usable form of nitrogen compounds which can be further used by plants, this is termed as nitrogen fixation. It happens during lightning. Nitrogen fixation happens during lightning or with the help of bacteria like blue and green algae. Bacteria like rhizobiums have nodules in their roots, which again helps in nitrogen fixation. Fine. Now nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle. What is nitrogen cycle? So, movement of nitrogen between atmosphere, soil and organisms is termed as nitrogen cycle. Fine. So movement of nitrogen between atmosphere, soil and organisms is been termed as nitrogen cycle. Fine. So this is all about nitrogen cycle and nitrogen fixation. Fine. Now the last topic of this chapter is animal husbandry. Now what is animal husbandry actually is? Now, rearing of animals. Okay, rearing of animals in farms at a very large scale to meet our needs of food and other products is termed as animal husbandry. Fine. So what is it? Rearing of animals in farms. Rearing of animals in farms at a very large scale to meet the needs of food and other products is termed as animal husbandry. For example, here we'll take example of animal husbandry in terms of daily farming, animal husbandry in terms of rearing. Fine. So animal reared here is for dairy farming is cow, goat, buffalo, etc. So the food which is obtained from them is milk, and the other products are curd, milk, cheese, etc. Fine. Rearing in animal husbandry in rearing, animal reared here is sheep, goat, fine, etc. So the food obtained from this animal is the food obtained from the animal reared here is milk. Fine. And the other product obtained from this is wool, silk, etc. Fine. So this is the example of animal husbandry in terms of dairy farming and rearing. Fine. So this is all about it. So this is all about animal husbandry, which is the last topic of chapter number 1, crop production and management. So here we have completed with the explanation of chapter number 1 of class 8th science, which is crop production and management. Hope you all understood it well. Thank you so much for watching it. Stay home, stay safe, and keep learning from home. Thank you so much.